Russian troops have turned to Wikipedia to find instructions on handling weapons and used 1960s-era maps in the country's invasion of Ukraine. NYT.
Here's a summary of the article.
From the start, Russia's invasion of Ukraine was riddled with strategic blunders, with a military force that was unprepared for the conflict and logistical issues that have hobbled the Kremlin. While in combat, the troops in the Naval Brigade lacked sufficient food, maps, critical medical supplies, or walkie-talkies, and they were forced to use 1970s-era Kalashnikov rifles, with some members having to resort to using Wikipedia to locate instructions for using certain weapons, according to the report. Russian President Vladimir Putin displayed a high degree of confidence in the country's military when he launched the invasion of Ukraine in late February. According to The Times, Putin spiraled into self-aggrandizement and anti-Western zeal, which drove him to make the decision to invade Ukraine, in near-total isolation. Per The Times report, Russia's invasion plans showed that the military expected troops to march across Ukraine and swiftly take control of the country, with officers being instructed to bring along the dress uniforms and medals for military parades in Kyiv, the Ukrainian capital. Russian troops on the ground in Ukraine relied on old maps, some from the 1960s, to navigate their way across the country, and many used their cell phones to call numbers in Russia, which allowed Ukrainian forces to locate and attack them. In January, the retired Russian general Leonid Ivashov, having seen reports about the impending conflict, wrote an open letter stating that a full-scale war with Ukraine would jeopardize the very existence of Russia as a state.
This post received a score of 44,000, with an upvote ratio of 91%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
Give them a month or two and they'll be on Ask Reddit.
ETA for invading Ukraine?
War pro tips.
No, the Russians aren't pros. War conscript tips.
As if anything on our life pro tips are actually tips from the pros, and not just marginally useful suggestions from everyday people.
Life pro tip. Surrendering increases your life expectancy. Winking face.
The real tips are always in the comments.
The real tips are the friends we made along the way.
They better have donated if they're using Wikipedia for war.
Thousands of poorly trained soldiers will scroll right past this message.
If those soldiers could read, they'd be very upset.
Size, I'll tell you what, those boys ain't right.
The whole Russian effort would be laughable but for the fact that it's still a fucking war and people are dying.
Tragedy plus time, my guy.
This war is gonna be funny as fuck in a decade.
I feel like the next decade is gonna be a doozy.
Every decade since the start of the 20th century has been a doozy if you were paying attention. Now the internet makes it a lot easier to pay attention.
We moved from the information age to the disinformation age.
As catchy as the sentence was, basically the entirety of history has been about disinformation. We've barely had a solid century of historians actually trying to sift genuine truth out of millennia of history written by the victors. The overwhelming majority of which gets chemicals sanitized with creationist ideology and, no guilt, infantilization, in America at least, so students don't have to deal with the thought that their great-grandpa might not have been a good person. You don't start getting the real truth till 200s level courses in university at best.
Stop it, you're hurting my child's feelings and that's illegal.
You're gonna damage my child's relationship with their grandfather if they see that photo of him yelling at a black child trying to go to school. I demand every teacher is fired and the only textbook is the Bible. But only the NIV version. Not King James because they talk about sex too obviously.
I only read Rick James B.T.C.H. Oh, that is rich.
Putin and people like him think that they own Ukraine, so, yeah.
Not only do they think they own them, they are honestly baffled on how such a small country, in comparison, has absolutely handled them so far. Even with the West's help, they are going toe-to-toe with one of the largest armies in the world. It's honestly impressive and inspiring the way Ukraine has fought so far.
Objectively, it is amazing.
The fact is that Russia is using a huge chunk of that army to hold together other dictatorial states across Eurasia means they can't bring their entire military to bear in Ukraine. That plus Western arming of Ukrainian forces has made the fight for Russia essentially impossible.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes. and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.